I mean, I did a lot of songs on independent films going to, the festival circuit, and nothing ever happened. But this one went to Sundance and blew the roof off the joint and got distribution. And this $40,000 film ended up grossing $40 million. We never saw it coming. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. My name is going to be in a major motion picture for the first time ever. I'm Taft-Hart lead. I'm going to get paid residuals, so I'll be able to join the union. What a gift. What an amazing stroke of luck. I go to the film with a bunch of friends, and we sit there, enjoy the movie immensely because it's a funny little film. I'm a fan of the film. And then sat there and watched the credits, and it said every single song that was used in the film said such and such song, written by so-and-so, published by so-and-so, performed by so-and-so, except The Rose, written by Amanda McBroom, published by Warner Tamerlane. And that's it. There's no performed by anywhere.
I'm your host, Mark Good, and this is Remarkable, a podcast focused on people and stories worthy of your attention. And now, today's show. I'm excited to introduce another episode of my Remarkable podcast, and I'm delighted to have with me today Darci Monet. Darci, have I pronounced your last name properly, like the artist Monet?
Yes, thank you. You have no idea how often it's mispronounced. So thank you. Yes, like the artist.
Wonderful, like the artist. Okay, and you're in L.A., correct?
I sure am. Yes. Balmy Van Nuys.
That's great. Well, good. Well, we actually got acquainted over LinkedIn through a podcast kind of a group. And I learned that you have this pretty amazing story that I'd love to share with our listeners today. But let's start by talking a little bit about your background. I should say at the very beginning, you're a vocal artist who not only performs but teaches people. Talk a little bit about your background. I mean, how did you get into making music for a living?
My mom likes to say that, like, I popped out singing. That when I was a baby, most babies cry to let you know they're awake because they have no other way to let you know, feed me, I'm up now. And
right.
She said I wouldn't cry, I'd sing. She'd hear me and she'd come in and I'd just be like, la, 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 in my crib. So I've been singing since I was born. Around 10, I started taking violin lessons. A couple years after that, piano lessons. And then I begged and begged and begged and begged until around 16, my mom and dad finally caved and got me voice lessons. And that was the thing. I always knew that I was supposed to sing. And I started writing songs and stuff like that. Went to college. Did my first year at Schenectady County Community College in upstate New York. Wonderful music program, especially for a community college. It was really fantastic. Then I transferred to Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, where I started my career as a singer, songwriter, and performer. After about 13 years there, I kind of felt like I'm not a country singer at all. And at the time, your options were to sing song demos for songwriters,
right,
to make a living, or sing backup on records, which was limited basically at the time for sure to country and Christian. And I actually moved there to try to get a Christian record deal. That was how I was raised in the songs I was writing at the time. And then through other friends who got record deals, I'd watch them, be on tour for an entire year and have to come home and deliver pizzas to make ends meet because they just weren't making any money. And so that kind of made me be like, yeah, maybe I don't want a record deal. Maybe I'll just stick to this studio singing thing, which I really loved. Right. And I was like, I'll just make my money being a studio singer, and then I can just write songs and perform and put out records when I feel like it.
Sure.
That was the plan. But in Nashville, it's like I said, at the time for sure, this was early 90s. It was all country and all Christian. So I thought maybe it will broaden my horizons if I go to Los Angeles. I can sing in the movies there. I can sing jingles there because at the time they were still writing jingles, you know what I mean, for commercials.
Sure.
Barely, that was on its way out, which I learned very quickly when I got here. So that I ended up coming to LA in January of 2001. Very interesting year to start your life over because, 8 months later, 9/11 happened. But I've just been here ever since.
When you moved to LA from Nashville, did you know anybody in LA?
My sister was here, and I had one friend who was a bartender at a gay bar. So I moved here with my sister, who worked a breakfast shift at a restaurant. So she was out of the house by 4:00 in the morning, in bed by 8, right? And so that left my one friend who was a bartender. And you cannot get a gay man out of his gay bar for nothing. Like that is what they do for fun. And so all my friends when I first moved here were just a bunch of gay guys who followed me around singing at karaoke all the time because I wanted to keep my chops up because I was trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. And I was like, well, I got to keep my voice in check. So I'll just sing karaoke. And so I had my little band of merry gays following me around.
Well, as I'm listening to your story, I'm thinking, okay, so you've spent all this time in Nashville. It's country and Christian. You say, no, I want to broaden my horizons a little bit, so let me move to LA. Most people, well, I could be wrong. Maybe not most people, but moving to LA and not knowing anybody, how in the world did you break into the industry? I mean, how did you pull that off?
Well, the adage, it's all who you know, is 1,000% true.
Yep.
Now, I don't even know if I can even say I ever broke into the industry, really, because I just, through friends who'd be like, oh, I have this friend who's making a movie, come and sing in it. And I did some independent stuff where I didn't get paid at all, but you just decide, okay, I'll do this. This is a step in the door. It might lead to something later. I did, through my friend who was the bartender, his name is Matt Hayes, shout out to my brother, who has since moved back to Nashville. He was dating a guy at the time who was making a documentary and said, hey, I need some dance songs. And so me and Matt, they called us in, paid us nothing, of course, to sing these songs. They're great. They got great vocals out of us. The guy who was the music director for that film later called me when he was hired as the music director and composer for a little independent film called Napoleon Dynamite that was going to go to Sundance and all the festival circuit. Until then, I was just like literally putting my name out on like Craigslist and having people call me and pay me $50 to sing their song demo, stuff like that, hoping that somebody would, all boats rise, whatever. So when John Swihart was the gentleman who was the composer, music director for Napoleon Dynamite, called me and said, hey, look, this goofy little comedy movie is making the circuit. It pays $100. We need somebody to come in here and sing a cover of The Rose by Bette Midler.
Right.
For whatever reason, they couldn't license her original recording. So we need you to come in and do that. And that is not uncommon in the film industry, especially with new filmmakers, independent films, people who are trying to, make a name for themselves as filmmakers. Their tiny little movie doesn't have a budget. Music licensing is very expensive.
Right.
And sometimes what will happen is you might have an in with somebody who will cut you a deal and say, sure, you can use my song for much less than normal. But then sometimes you have to go to a major record label and say, hey, in this instance, we'd really like to license Bette Midler's The Rose for our film. And for whatever reason, the label who owns the actual recording of the song says no. Keep in mind, Bette has nothing to do with this because she doesn't own her own recording of that song. The record label does.
Ah, interesting.
So, yeah, you can't go to Bette Midler and say, hey, can I use The Rose? She'll be like, go talk to Sony, So for whatever reason, they said no, or they quoted a fee that was so exorbitant that they can't possibly do it. And that's when they hire somebody like me, a studio singer, to come in, and if they really have to have that song. And so that's what they did. And we did that, and we just kind of laughed it off because, I did a lot of songs on independent films going to, the festival circuit, and nothing ever happened.
Right.
This one went to Sundance and blew the roof off the joint and got distribution. And this $40,000 film ended up grossing $40 million. We never saw it coming.
So the
thing is,
that's a 1,000 time return on the budget, which is extraordinary. So if this was on social media, we'd say that the film went viral, right? It exploded, right? It exploded. So tell me, were you a member of the SAG and the union and so forth?
That's the thing. This job was supposed to give me what is called a Taft-Hartley, which is the paperwork they submit that gets your foot in the door. When you do a SAG job, or at the time it was just SAG. This was before the SAG and AFTRA joined. At the time, if you were not a member of the union and you got a union job that would give you the Taft-Hartley, that would be the paperwork they sent to SAG that would allow you a period of 30 days to do as much union work as you possibly can before they force you to join.
Okay.
Or you can't do any more union work.
Right.
The joining fee at the time was like $3,300.
Okay.
I'm sure it's more than that now. And keep in mind, I did a lot of AFTRA work in Nashville and never was forced to join the union because it's a right to work state.
Right. And
you don't have to. But here in California, that's not the case. So if I had just, my whole career is like a shoulda, woulda, coulda, kind of, cautionary tale a little bit.
Sure.
In that, I wished I had joined AFTRA back in Nashville, which would have cost me $400. And then when I got to LA, eventually when they merged, I'd have been grandfathered in.
Yep.
And none of this would be an issue, but so at the time, what I found out later was they never ended up filing my paperwork. And so that was one thing. Then when the film came out, I remember I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. My name is going to be in a major motion picture for the first time ever. I'm Taft-Hartley'd. I'm going to get paid residuals, so I'll be able to join the union. What a gift. What an amazing stroke of luck. I go to the film with a bunch of friends, and we sit there, enjoy the movie immensely because it's a funny little film. I'm a fan of the film. And then sat there and watched the credits, and it said every single song that was used in the film said such and such song, written by so-and-so, published by so-and-so, performed by so-and-so.
Right.
Except The Rose, written by Amanda McBroom, published by Warner Tamerlane. And that's it. There's no performed by anywhere. And I know that John, the composer, musical director, had called me no less than 3 times to make sure he had my crediting information and my address, everything for the Taft-Hartley paperwork correct. No less than 3 times.
Wow.
So I know he did what he was supposed to do. Years after the fact, while I'm trying to get an IMDb credit even for it, or be able to say, yes, that's me, that's not Bette Midler, IMDb is like, you have to show us like a press release that proves it's you. And I'm like, so I went looking for a press release and found in the press releases that it said in the film, this song is used, and The Rose by Bette Midler. Like, there was no mention of me. And I'm like, they purposefully, I can't imagine that it wasn't purposeful in order for them to write Bette's name. Because in addition, every high schooler who walks across camera had their name credited at the end of the film. There's like a list of 150 students.
Wow.
So I'm like, there's no way you accidentally forgot me singing a song in the film where there was no dialogue over it either. It's not even like I was underneath in the background. It is my voice singing The Rose is center stage in this scene. And I can only think they purposefully neglected it. So I don't have a Taft-Hartley, meaning I don't have a way into the union, which means they don't even know I'm involved in the film, which means I've never been paid another dime, except for the $100 that I made that day to record it. That I'm sure came out of John's pocket, honestly. So yeah, that was, in 2004. And that should have been my big break into the studio session world, watching everybody else's career in that film level up. John, the music director, went on to be the music director and composer for How I Met Your Mother.
Wow.
Yeah. And then everybody else's careers, as we know, that leveled up and, stuff like that. And what ended up happening was, here's how I found out that they didn't do my paperwork, was that John called me a couple of years later when he was working on How I Met Your Mother and said, "Hey, I need you to come in and sing some vocals on here." He's like, "You've got your SAG card because of Napoleon, right?" And I was like, "No, sir, I do not." And he was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "Well, if you're not SAG, I don't know if I can use you on this. Let me call the union, find out what I can do." He calls, he finds out no paperwork has been filed. So the good news was, he could use me, and he gave me my Taft-Hartley from How I Met Your Mother. But the amount of money from one episode airing wasn't anywhere near what I would have made from Napoleon Dynamite. So to this day, I'm what's called a SAG-AFTRA must join. I can't take any union work unless I cough up the $3,300 plus to join. And really the only way that would happen is if I got a national commercial.
Wow.
Because, like a day here and a day there just doesn't. And, I just don't have $3,300 sitting around. So, yeah, it was difficult. It's still difficult to think about that when it should have been what kicked my career into gear.
So many people listening to this will be able to relate to not only the shoulda, woulda, coulda, but those situations in life that they turn left as opposed to right. They don't happen when they should happen.
Yeah.
Things explode that shouldn't explode. That's hugely disappointing.
Right.
People enjoy your voice, your music, your hard work, in spite of the fact that there is no residual. So what have you done since then? I mean, how have you sort of, again, if you're comfortable with this, how emotionally have you come to terms with what I call a loss, and how have you moved forward?
Well, the interesting thing is, I just I look back on it now and see that I kind of started to let Darci the artist wither on the vine. I had a day job at the time, which I had until about 2008 when the housing industry crashed.
Right.
And I lost my job because I worked in the title industry.
Yep.
I took that as a sign where I was like, okay, am I doing full-time music? Okay, let's start teaching voice lessons. So that's when I started doing that. But I really didn't do anything. I did some performances here and there, a couple song demos from people who never went anywhere, But I really just kind of, as I look back in hindsight, go, man, I stopped. I quit. I gave up without actually saying I'm giving up, And this last year, I was like, okay, I need to punch up this voice coaching thing. I was doing it part-time, and I'm going to go all in, and this is going to be the thing, and this is it. I jumped on to joined a business coaching program, and the coach, the name of the program was called Thrive Academy. Wonderful. They work with holistic practitioners, life coaches, people like that. And because I bring a lot of intuition into my coaching with students, I thought this might be a good way for me to just felt better than the businessy kind of, programs that are
Sure.
all about the dollar and stuff like that. So I joined that. Jesse Corin, who is the co-founder, would do lead coaching sessions every morning for about an hour on Zoom. And he'd put someone in the hot seat. And every Wednesday was like emotional breakthrough day. And so I got in the hot seat this one day, and we're talking about my music. We're talking about my coaching singers and all that kind of thing. And somehow, I don't even know how, somehow Napoleon Dynamite slipped in. And the thing is, I wouldn't talk about it.
Right.
Like, I would change the subject matter if somebody brought up the movie or anything. If I saw it on television, and here's another thing, it constantly played on Comedy Central. And every time I saw, they would do weekend marathons, and I would be like throwing my remote at the TV going, I can't believe I'm not making this money. So it was like, made me very bitter, and I just didn't want to talk about it. Somehow in this coaching conversation, I slipped it in, and I don't know how. And Jesse goes, wait a minute. He goes, I know you have done this, and this. He starts bullet pointing my resume,
Wow.
which was amazing.
Wow.
Like, there's a couple hundred people in this program, right? And he knows our resumes and what we are doing. And he said, why is this the first time we're hearing about Napoleon Dynamite? Keep in mind, there's 60 other people on this call. And I was like, well, and I kind of gave him the story, and I said, I don't talk about it. I don't. And he was like, okay, what can you do? And at this point, I'm crying, right? Like, he's like the Barbara Walters of business coaching, this guy. And I'm like, on a Zoom call with a bunch of strangers in my pajamas. And he's saying, okay, what can you do to take this narrative back? And I said, well, I hired a lawyer at the time. We filed a complaint with SAG. And he's like, no. He's like, those are unwinnable games. You have no control over what other people do. What can you do to turn this story around for yourself? And I was like, okay, I'm going to percolate on this for a couple days. And I did. And I remembered that every once in a blue moon, somebody would reach out to me through my website off the worldwide interwebs and be like, hey, I figured out that it's not Bette Midler singing The Rose and that it's you.
Wow.
Did you guys record a full version of that? Because I'd love to have it. Because keep in mind, The Rose isn't even on the official soundtrack CD from the film. Like, I look at that and go, what a missed opportunity. So let's say Sony is still like, no, you can't use Bette Midler's recording for the soundtrack. They could have come to us and said, hey, do a full thing. We'll release it as a single. We'll help to, more promotion for the movie. But what a missed opportunity for them. I think that's stupid. So there's people out there who are like, where's the rose on this soundtrack? That's one of my favorite scenes, right? So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to record a full version of this song. And I'll release it, and then I'll be like, this is me. It was me the whole time, blah, blah, blah. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, wait a minute. What year is this? So I go to Google. I remind myself of the year it was released. This was 2023 at the time, and I thought, oh my God, next year's the 20th anniversary. And that just felt like the universe saying, yes, do this. We're setting this up for you. You have a huge reason to do this.
Absolutely.
And so then then after I decided that, things just started falling in place. One of my students who has a band, a wonderful band, they're on tour right now. Shout out to the Toxhards. He said, he and his, they're younger millennials. And so he's like, hey, we grew up with this song. We'd love to play this for you. We'd love to record this track for you.
That's beautiful.
Seriously, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And they put so much heart into it and sang on it. And it's a beautiful, and mixed it for me and everything. Let me come in. And I didn't have to pay a dime for recording because I went into their studio that they have in his house. And then I called someone I knew about. One of my dear friends used to be in PR out here, used to work in PR. And I said, do you think your old boss would be willing to let me pick her brain about what I can do to get some notice or whatever? And he's like, oh, of course. He goes, I'll tell you right now. He goes, you can never afford her, but she'll answer your questions. And I was like, cool. That's all I really wanted, right?
Right.
So I called up Pam at Sharp and Associates, and she's very gracious, and we have a long conversation, and all of a sudden she just starts talking like this is going to happen. Like she's going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. I was like, okay, wait, I have to crowdsource paying you. I need a number. And I'm thinking it's going to be so way over my head.
Sure.
And she quoted me a very reasonable number to be able to squeeze out of my friends. And I was like, I think that's doable. Give me this much time. And this is what, and it just all came together. I've had to crowdsource things before and it was like pulling teeth.
Sure.
But for this, people were like, here, throwing their money at me. Yes, we want you to do this. We want you to rediscover yourself. So it's just been this amazing, amazing process. And the song's out, and I'm trying to get my name out there, and we're working on the press. And thankfully for you reached out to me and to let me talk about this and let people know that it was actually me the whole time.
You're the hidden rose. I mean, you're the hidden rose. I mean, I listened to, before we did this podcast, actually, before I even reached out to you, I read a little bit about your background. I went to your website and I went to Spotify, and we're obviously, we're going to have a link to that in the show. And I listened to it, and you know, I'm not just saying this. As I told you when we had our phone conversation, my oldest son is a music producer. He does work with people in LA. He was just in Nashville this last week, and his wife is a vocal artist. So I've been around people who are really good with music. I mean, really good. So I mean, my kids grew up with me playing music in the house all the time, but that's only because I had CDs and I love music, right? Not because I can do anything musically, right? But I know a good voice when I hear it. You have an amazing voice, which helps me understand why it was in the movie, right? I get it, right? But I think it's beautiful that 20 years later, it's almost like a Wizard of Oz moment. It's like, the curtain is being pulled back, right? Toto has pulled the curtain back, and there's Darci, right? Here she is. Yeah, that's right. Which I think is beautiful, and you have this. I'm not a musician, I'm not a critic, but you have this wonderful deep. You described it as it's kind of soulful. It's almost a musky kind of voice. I mean, I love it. It's warm. It's rich. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. No, it's lovely.
I'm going to say that with age, I'm like, well, first of all, I never sounded like Bette Midler in the first place. I don't know how anybody thought it was Bette Midler. I mean, I saw nothing, and I tried. I really tried. I am not a vocal mimic. That's like a very special. God likes you best if you can mimic other voices. Like, it's not my thing. But just over the years though too, like my voice has changed, and I had some vocal damage, and so it's really changed my voice. And now I'm trying to get used to, like, my younger stuff. It sounds completely different. I sound really different. I'm trying to embrace my new, richer, alto-y kind of sound, and I'm kind of digging it, actually. Kind of liking it. Really happy with the recording. And I feel like, and I actually, just for poops and giggles, I almost swore, sorry. Before the day I went to record my vocals, I just, on a wild hair, went Googling other people's covers of The Rose, and I was like, sorry, Jesus, but I am very, very confident that I have the best cover of this song that exists, because some of them are like, "Ooh, no, son, you shouldn't have done that." But so yeah, I feel really good about it, and I'm excited.
Well, it's wonderful. It's a beautiful story. I mean, it's first of all, I have to say, and I've said this earlier, I'm very sorry, just as you are, that the SAG thing didn't come through, that you didn't get the recognition. Well, A, you didn't get the recognition. B, you didn't get the residuals. So, which is so important to life in LA. That being said, here's the deal: you have persevered, right? A lot of people would have folded their tents and left, either left the industry, stopped singing, or said, "I'm out of here." And so props to you for staying there. And props to you for saying, I'm going to, after 2008, I'm going to do what I can to, work, as you said, work your chops, right? But then I think it's so beautiful that you would say last year in 2023, we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary. And I love this because in spite of the fact that you were not recognized officially, right, in the movie, you said, I'm going to celebrate 20 years of a beautiful piece of music that I did for a film that blew up. And I think that's wonderful because, hey, it's your party, Darci. I mean, it's your party. I mean, come on. You're the voice, not Bette Midler. I mean, I love Bette Midler.
And the more I think about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? They didn't credit me, they didn't pay me, but it's still my voice.
That's right.
That's still me. And I was part of a huge pop culture phenomenon. And nobody can take that away from me.
That's right.
I have to tell them that it was me, but it's time for me to celebrate that because who gets to do that? I know a lot of working singers here in this town who, the nameless, faceless session singers or whatever, who don't get that. They're singing in big choirs and movie scores and stuff, and that's cool, and they get paid well, and that's great. But they don't get to say, oh, that's me singing in this ginormous indie film, The Little Engine That Could. It's a very special thing. And I'm looking at it now. That's how I'm turning this around for myself, is to look at it and go, I am part of cinematic history.
Absolutely.
I'm actually choking myself up thinking about it. I'm like, I get to celebrate that instead of feeling bad about that. It's great. It's great.
Well,
and with this whole thing, I had a friend in Nashville reach out and say, hey, she's wanting to she wants to start producing for other artists, and all she's got are her own songs. And so she said, hey, is there a cover song you'd like to record? I'd like to put this together for you. All you have to do is find a place to put your vocals on. So like my next single is going to be a cover song. I'm going to keep the name of it close to the vest for now until I'm ready to announce that.
Sure.
And then I'm going to be like, you know what? I've had this Christmas song that I've been wanting to record for years. And I'm going to do that. So I'm just like, I'm going to use this as a springboard to revive Darci, the artist, the singer-songwriter, and the performer. And things seem to be like the universe is like, yeah, go ahead. We're putting all these things together for you. We're making this happen for you. So whether I make any money on it or not, it's just, I'm a carny. Was born a carny, and you just can't stop doing that.
Well, as your mom said, you came out singing, and I will tell you, as a person who, when I started this podcast about a month ago, right? I said, I don't know who will listen to these episodes. I don't know who will be my guest, but I want to put positivity and joy and goodness out into the world. Will it make money? I don't know. But you know what? There's a joy in doing great work. And for you, that was part of the beautiful part in the serendipity of meeting you, is that you're really good at what you do. I mean, you're really good. It's not like somebody.
I think so.
No, you're really good. And so, what a joy to be able to interview somebody who's really good, as a vocal artist. I mean, I find it wonderful, and I also love the story of saying, you know what, I'm going to celebrate 20 years, whether or not I'm going to throw my own party for what I did.
Yes. That's what I'm doing, throwing my own party. Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Well, please keep me informed so I can keep our listeners informed, as things continue to unfold, particularly, like you said, you're recording some new stuff. I mean, let me know so I can let our listeners know. And we want to follow this because this is like the next act. I mean,
Yes.
And
you know what? I just had my 54th birthday, and this is Act 2. This is, I really feel like, here we go, Act 2.
Absolutely.
Taking it running.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, I know you'll do well because you've done well before. You didn't get recognition. Okay. That doesn't take away anything from the quality of what you performed. Your voice is, in my view, my opinion, has matured over the years. It's got that wonderful alto sound, and who knows what may be out there waiting for you. But I think it'll be good. because you're a good person. You've got incredible skills, and you've got an amazing thing in your resume. And it's like the coach said, how come you didn't tell us about this before?
Yeah. Now I'm telling everybody. It's like in my bios on all my socials, singer of the Rose and Napoleon Dynamite. For real.
That's wonderful. Well, Darci, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a delight to chat with you and to hear what you're doing. And like I said, please let us know as things continue to unfold like a rose. I mean, who knows?
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
You bet. I'm Mark Good. You've been listening to my remarkable podcast. For more episodes like this, as well as premium content, visit my site, markgood.substack.com. I'm Mark Good. You've been listening to my remarkable podcast. For more episodes like this, as well as premium content, visit my site, markgood.substack.com.